We are live.
So we're live. Okay, great. This is the policy subcommittee of the Council Rock School Board, and we are, what are we doing? We're broadcasting. What's this service called?
YouTube.
YouTube. Oh, it's going to be on YouTube, and it's going to have our slides and the draft versions of policy revisions and new policies, and we're just going to go through them one by one. It's hard, brutal work. But there's an agenda slide, the next one. And do we want to say who's here, or it's up to you guys? Do you want to?
Sure.
Okay, so we can go around the table. I'm Bill Foster, the chair of the policy committee, and we have distinguished guests with us.
Rick Abramson.
Okay.
Andy Block.
Denise Brooks.
Chuck Lambert, Director of Special Services.
Matt Frederickson, IT Director.
Awesome. So the public is attending by internet. So this is the agenda. The first item, we're going to go over a PSBA quote for policy review service. And so you'll see that in the packet. And then after that, we'll get into two policies that require really minor changes. I think they can sail through and be promoted to the board level relatively quickly. Then, in honor of Mr. Abramson, who has concerns about his potential non-compliance in the near future, there's
Oh, well, let's rephrase that.
there's a high
Because I don't
potential
think that it's a policy that's anybody's ever
followed. Right. Yeah, there's been.
complied with.
Well, okay, let's just say that we need to update it. It's a bit anachronistic. And then we're going to talk about a new policy about conflicts of interest. It's a kind of policy that some other school districts had. We don't have it. It's a hole in our policy portfolio. And so there's a proposal to fit this in. And then there's a PSBA template for the superintendent evaluation. The thought is we can just swap that one in for our current version, no fuss, no bother. And then, and these last two are basically the legislature coming out with new legislation that needs to be mirrored in our policies. And I can't remember the exact dates, but I think these were like 2014, 2015 era, both of these. Suicide prevention, a lot of new stuff in the legislature, and it's not in our current policy. But there's some stuff in our current policy that I think is missing in it, and so we can just maybe merge them together. And then, especially if Mr. Grubb shows up, the thought was we could give an update on what we might be able to do in restricting, or at least discuss whether we want to restrict the use of uncompensated leave for folks to try out outside of Council Rock employment. People do uncompensated leave all the time to leave their position to fill another Council Rock position, and that's something we don't want to put a block on, because that would mess us up. But outside is a different thing. And so let's see what the next slide, PSBA policy review service. And you have a more full description of what their quote is. So basically you have a contract from PSBA that is the real deal. And it lists an attachment A. And attachment A describes what they would do in that contract. And so what I put on this slide is a summary of some of the high points of attachment A. So as they state in that attachment A, the last time PSBA reviewed our policies was in 1995. So it's been a while. And I think as we look at some of the next few policies, we'll all agree that it shows.
Is that fee like a
Right?
flat fee? Is that like what they charge to school districts regardless of size, or?
In my understanding, it is a flat fee, except that it actually has a discount in it because we, as a district, are members not only of PSBA, but we pay for the policy update subscription. So because we're already in that subscription service, it's less. By how many thousands of dollars, I'm not clear. But this is the amount. They say that $6,200 is not invoiced all at once because the process is going to take a few years to run through. So it will be invoiced over a period of time.
So how does this work? Do they get paper copies of all our policies? Are they working off of our website?
They would work off our website, so it's all going to be transactions over the web. And we can point them wherever we want them to start. And it's all described in here. They tend to start top to bottom, with the board policies and working their way down. But we can have it, they're open to any option we want. We can say we're going to look at these first or go to this other section. But there is a bit of architectural change that is definitely involved because they changed the structure of their standard manual. So if you look, and it'll come up tonight with the conflict of interest, there's 3 different kinds of employees that are listed in the policy manual: administrative, professional, and support. So you'll see over and over again, we have policies that are basically the same policy triplicated through our manual. So they are making the architecture of their manual different. It'll be as much as possible one merged employee section. So our manual will change its structure.
So during the course of the 3 years that we could be in this, there are policies that get added and updated anyway. So does that get pushed to the front of the line or something? Or
We can talk to them about that. I mean, that's reasonable. Their strategy is to basically, all of their it starts with the PSPA templated policies. And so those are based on the most current legislation, court rulings, federal, state laws. Their goal is to see our policies not connecting up with that. And some of ours aren't. But I think they tend to go top to bottom. But we could say, hey, if there's policies like the suicide prevention or like the superintendent one that we are aware are new, I mean, we could ask them, could you do the ones that you changed most recently that were most likely to be non-compliant with?
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Right. That's fair. I think they could do that. It's a good suggestion.
Has Rob Cox seen this contract?
No, he hasn't. So this is the first time it's been seen. So it's not enough proposing to move on it right away. It's just an initial interaction with them.
I tell you what, just from my perspective, $6,200 to get this kind of work on something that's antiquated would be money well spent.
Last time we did
Perfectly
it.
comfortable not discussing it and going forward with it,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
What do you think, Ray?
What are we paying the PSB now on an annual basis?
I don't know. I can find out.
Because, so what we do now is when we draft a policy, I think we send it to them for review. So this would be a whole restructuring, that they would actually go through every one of our policies.
Right. I mean, I think our subscription service, they send us their updated policy, whatever it is. We do it with what we will. And I think basically what's happened over a number of years is we've done nothing. We haven't read it and acted immediately on what they sent us. So there's now a backlog that is different than the subscription service that this contract would cover.
And we did this 20 years ago.
Right.
I think oftentimes what happens is that we ask them, we say we want to institute a policy on suicide,
Okay.
and then we contact them, and then they send us the policy, and then the policy committee in the past would have then.
We would until they rework it because so many of their policies are just found so many
Errors.
problems and say, or issues.
It was just, it was the starting point.
It was a starting point.
Okay. I mean, so it's, as they describe, they're going to look at our policy and their templated policies, and kind of merge them. Here's this bit.
Sorry.
No, thanks for coming. And this bit.
And announce who you are for the record.
Oh, Wendy Thomas.
So we're talking about this PSBA service that's $6,200 to go through our policy manual and update it. And Rick's raising the concern that in the past, some of their policies have needed further tinkering. My reading of what they're proposing is that it contemplates that back and forth, that it's not just they replace what we have. They look at it, they look at what they have, they come up with a draft revision, and they give it to us, and we have a chance to go back and forth with them on it.
Fine.
And so, Mrs. Brooks, any comments about whether we should consider it?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
I think we should do it. I mean, you missed the beginning, but basically, it'll take several years. They go through everything and sort of just consolidate and just give an assessment and review of our policies. And the last time Council Rock had that done was in 1995.
And is there back and forth between somebody, our representative, and this person there?
Yeah, I mean, there is a back and forth, and it's not specified in any detail in advance, but they state in their proposal that they will communicate with us their proposed revisions.
Okay, and is it legally reviewed?
They're-
Not that
so-
we would want ours, but I'm just wondering.
Right. So what their claim is, right or wrong from Rick's experience, is that their policies, that's a strength of their approach, that their policies have already been legally reviewed for conformance with the school code, et cetera.
If we did this one, do you envision or understand it to be, they'll say, okay, we're gonna do policies 1, 2, 3, 4 in this month. And then they'll give them back to us. And then, of course, we would want to look at them
Right.
and then give final reviews. So in essence, it would be forcing us to do a full review.
Yeah, it would be like that. It would be a rolling
And the advantage of the
process.
money is that they're a professional board and they would have given us some insight. And it's a fee for the whole time, 6,200 is fee for the whole time?
It'll
How
go for
many-
3 years.
Yeah, how many policies are there? Exactly.
You know,
The book's this thick.
I agree with you, Rick. Since I've been on the board, we often change and theirs aren't perfect. But if there's some assistance to get us through the process and makes us review it, and it doesn't seem outrageously expensive for that piece of it, but I think we have to be committed to doing our piece, or we're just gonna have a stack of PSBA recommended stuff that we haven't reviewed.
Right, we should then do what we want with it, tweak it, whatever, and then give it to Rob Cox for final review and for first reading.
There shouldn't be an expectation that like every policy is like gonna have to be corrected and.
No, probably, hopefully not everyone, but at least we'll look at them.
But that's the point, for someone to look at it more holistically and see, you know, where changes can be made just to make it a.
What they won't do is we do something a little different and they won't know that. And so sometimes when I'm here, what we're adding to policy is, here's what the policy says, but in practice, what we've been doing is X.
Right.
So we have to make the
so
policy.
they claim that they're gonna compare, that they're gonna look at what we have and what they have, and they're, gonna do a little bit of.
But they won't know what we're doing in reality, is my point.
Oh, yeah, well, right.
I'm just saying sometimes the policies are behind how we've modified our,
Definitely.
what, didn't something say blackboards and we didn't have
Well,
blackboards or so, you know, it's like.
We'll have some tonight that are pretty old.
So I think it's a good process. I think it's worth the investment. I think the board needs to be committed to reviewing what they give us back. If we have monthly meetings or quarterly meetings, whatever you think.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
You have 318 policies.
318 policies. Policy a
that doesn't
day.
count policy A, B, C.
No, no,
It doesn't count the administrative regulations,
Right,
Right.
which, yeah,
which really, some
It's
of
the
those
meat material.
should, and we should discuss that, some of those should be rolled into policies, like the class size guidelines.
Right.
That's one I think right off the bat, that shouldn't be an administrative regulation, it should be a board policy.
And I don't know if we would ever, we can ask them as we get into this before we pull the trigger on it, are there any kind of general sense as the board, we want to see whether they can work with. Like, we would love to scrunch this down and get from 318 to a smaller number. Like, I assume you
100.
want that. Can we make it smaller?
Nobody can know 318 policies, that's
No.
the problem. Nobody can.
That's it, and so it becomes ineffective.
Well, Rick could, but I could never know 318.
The benefit of having so many policies, though, that when you go through the index, it's easy to find the table of contents. It's easy to find one rather
Yeah.
than lumping a lot together.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
But there could be redundancies
Yeah,
that
I'm
this
sure
would
there
pick up that we wouldn't otherwise know about. Or, I mean, because we're not looking at it.
And this is repeating, but one of the redundancies is we have 3 different employee sections, and in many cases, those just are cloned. And so PSBA has stated in their proposal that they are restructuring their policy, so it doesn't do that. So there will be some consolidation, which would be good.
And that's great, because we'd never get around to that.
Okay, so we will move forward.
So then does that mean that it'll be on our agenda soon?
Yes, I mean, I will check back with them exactly. I'll get a little more clarity on how exactly we will work with them, what's their best practice. I mean, obviously, it's not just the school board, it's the administration. And, do they want to do it quarterly or monthly or whatever? So when it comes up for discussion, I hope to have answers to those things.
Yeah, get the contract.
Yeah, the contract's actually here already.
It's in here?
Yeah, so you can look that over.
Just the 2 pages.
Yeah,
It's small.
not too bad.
And so now, because the policy committee hasn't met in I don't know how long, and this is kind of like a warm-up exercise. The next 2 policies are the Stairmaster's flat on these.
So 802 is our icebreaker.
802 is our icebreaker. Let's see how we are as a group, whether we can agree to this. This, I think, was pointed out by Mr. Abelson. Mr. Grubb is walking in, so I have a packet for you. You missed the first item, but to briefly recap, this is a proposal for PSBA to review our policy manual, and everybody's for it. So
What's the fee?
$6,200. And it
Over 3 years.
Still over 3 years.
So they'll go through all of them, or they'll go through them as we review them?
They'll go through them all, but we can tell them how we want them to start. So Mrs. Brooks suggested, for instance, we start with the policies that PSBA has issued most recently. Or we can do it from top to bottom, however we want to take it on.
Well, the ones that we've looked at recently,
That they've looked at. So for instance,
Oh, okay.
tonight, the superintendent and the
New.
the newest of the new in response to legislation. So I think we have enough folks that are interested in that, and we were just gonna roll up our sleeves and start working on policies. So 802, Mr. Abelson noticed that our school organization was maybe wrong, and that the Chancellor Street Elementary School is no longer a school, and that Maureen Welch was not listed, and that the junior high schools are middle schools. So the thought was maybe we should make these changes to reflect what schools we have.
And Rick, you're the one who's brought this up in the past. Is listing Chancellor Street as a school make any difference for anything else, or?
Because it was already delisted.
see, this is my question, when you look at,
It's not a school.
what?
It's not a school.
It's not a school, it's not listed. So my question to you is, why do we have this policy?
I don't know.
Is it really needed?
Right, because actually the arbiter of is a school is PDE listed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, the value of it is in the last paragraph that basically says the superintendent will continually monitor the effectiveness and recommend organizational changes. So in that respect, it's kind of nice to know that you have a certain organization listed and the administration's gonna keep thinking about that.
Consider making that part of 312.
Okay.
Which would be, people are following at home.
It's
What?
really part of the superintendent's
That's what,
line in his contract.
well, that's why I threw it in the
So-
312, which is performance assessment of superintendent, assistant superintendent, talks about they're continually going to monitor and report this to the board. So that's part of their performance assessment. Are they monitoring that? What's the report?
Right. I mean, we can ask the solicitor whether this is something that we need also, right? Get that second opinion. I'm fine deleting it.
So should we keep it? If we should keep it, because the solicitor said so, you're right, correct the list. If we don't need to keep it, then we should probably move the responsibilities, because it's really not a delegation of responsibility, because there's no responsibility stated in this, other than report.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, it's interesting, because the last sentence is actually part of what we're going through in the other room.
Well, yeah, that's why I kind of like it. It's current.
But it's a large policy to have one paragraph.
Okay, any other comments on our warm-up exercise? We'll see if we can delete it. Oh, yeah, please.
The only thing I would say is that it says upon approval of the Department of Education, within the Department of Education, the Sloan program, we consider to be a part of the 2 high schools. We don't list it as a separate school.
It actually has a principal, which is at North.
Okay.
North
The-
principal.
the- If we have to suspend the youngster, we require to do it through those buildings.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay,
We're going through it,
8:07. We'll keep moving. This was also brought up by Mr. Abelson. I think the concern was that it might be anachronistic. So what I did was, I just went and looked in the school code, and the reality is the school code still contemplates that every day there'll be opening ceremonies where there is a salute to the flag and a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance, and there'll be a flag available for that. So, you know, school code section 771 is still alive and well. The only thing that I thought we could consider doing is aligning the wording of this to more closely match what's in 771 and this 22 section 1210, because the wording was a little bit different. So right now I have a student may decline to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and may refrain from saluting the flag on the basis of personal belief or religious convictions. That is a direct quote from 22-1210, whereas what was there before wasn't. And
That has the word required.
I'm sorry.
Repeat the direct quote from 2210?
A student may decline to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and may refrain.
I was asking about the word required. Because shall be required. It's really that you can't, if you require it, then you can't
Right, so it's like
allow them
each
to
classroom.
refrain.
Right. Well, that's the difference between 771 and 22-1210. So, you know, you have these two different parts of the state law. And one was after the other.
And if it's state law, why even have a policy? Why have a policy telling us what the state law?
Well, let me put it this way. According to this policy, if the student arrives after the pledge, the teacher would be obligated to require the student to make the pledge. Because it says each student shall be required to salute the flag.
But at opening exercises. So if they're not there at opening exercises, my reading would be that you
I
don't
hear
have to. Right.
I hear you, but
But it's sort of weird to say each student is required and then say a student can decline. So
Right.
isn't it each
why would
classroom?
Why would we say as part of each day's opening exercises, students, plural, will be led in the salute to the flag, and just go with that notion that it's led as an organization. Everything else still applies then, your wording from the wording from the law.
Right. I'm fine with that.
Does PSBA have a model policy?
I'll ask. And then the other areas that seem to be discrepant with what was actually in the school code was, we said that if a student declined to recite the pledge, that the parent or guardian would be required to furnish the school administration with a written statement of their child's conscientious objection. I couldn't find any such requirement in the school code or in this Title 22. So it seemed like we did that ourselves. The school code does say that we will inform the parents or guardians that their student is declining. It says we have to do that.
I don't know, it could have been in the school code back in the 1950s.
It's still there. You can go see it. It's right there today. You look online. It's-
No, I'm talking about the written.
Oh, yeah.
That could have been something that was in the school. I don't know, but that was just rescinded or amended since.
Right. And then the other thing was the moment of silence. It is actually a different section of the code. So when I searched for it, I found it in 1516.1. And there it says that it's at the option of the staff member if they want to do that, or a school board may require its staff to have the moment of silence, which we have been doing. So it's our option whether to continue that or not. Welcome to the ancient history of the school code. So are there any thoughts about whether we leave that moment of silence in? That is our prevailing practice.
Is that the prevailing practice?
That's my understanding. So do you know, I mean, so I've heard that we are doing the moment of silence.
Every time I've been in a classroom during opening exercises, they do it. I can't say that everyone does it, but it's pretty consistent with my experience.
Right. Okay, so for
It's not 60 seconds. I don't think anybody times it.
Okay.
Make sure it's exact.
Jerry should be there.
Man, I mean,
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, it's in, and I think it's in 16.1, 60 seconds. So what I'll do is I'll ask PSBA if they have this. Minimally, we'll change the second paragraph to the students will be led to salute the flag. So pending what PSBA says, we'll revisit it.
so it's that's amazing. We have to notify. Shall be. Or, you know, it is interesting because it doesn't give a time frame for it. So it's not like each day you must inform at some point. That is still in the law is interesting, but it doesn't say shall notify daily, shall notify weekly, shall notify what period of time.
No, I don't have it in front of me, but I don't know if you have it here. But we could be confusing the Pennsylvania code with the school code.
Mhm.
So we have to be careful about that. From some of these references.
Right. Well, if I get the PSBA one, it'll presumably have the correct references. I will say that I searched the school code 771, school code 1516.1. So I personally did that and this Title 22. So I know the language of those three based on what's on the internet at the Pennsylvania websites. So anything else on this one? Yeah. Those were our exciting warm-up exercises. Okay, 007. Policy, let's see, this was called distribution. So I think Rick's concern was that A, we weren't following it. B, it was antiquated. And C, when he leaves, I'm thinking if he can't find his manual to return it, he will never sleep again.
No, I have the manual, but I have so many writings and notes on it that it's.
Well, and who's received updates to?
I never received an original ever, so, that's.
So I have the
original I
binder.
received was no longer current. Not even close. Not sure it was
You used to
current.
make
I got it.
updates to it at the inner file.
Yeah, so I never got it.
A whole stack of what I got when I started out.
So I still have the binder, but so
Well,
much.
that's number 49. I find it 49. We won't serialize.
Right, they said they had to be numbered. And so the thought is in this,
Mine's 48.
the thought is to change this policy to not be just distribution, because as far as I can tell, we don't have anything that defines how we store the original, much less distribute copies of the original. So the thought was change the title to policy manual instead of distribution. In the first paragraph in red here, just basically says that our policy manual is distributed by the website. And that it's publicly available with no user ID or passwords, and that everybody involved with this operation will be told the location of that website. And if it changes, we'll probably tell everybody where the new location is. So that's all that is.
Do we have a process in place, Chuck, that you're aware of, that requires all employees to read the policy manual?
No.
And then sign it and acknowledge it?
No.
No, we don't have board members.
No, we don't have to. No, we certainly don't have
Should we?
There's 318 policies.
Yeah.
Right? I think we should get it down first. I mean, what'll happen is they won't actually read it.
Yeah.
They'll just sign that they read it. And then it just becomes one of these things that you may face in a large company, for instance, where it's just a discharge of liability. And it's not a real
Yeah.
engagement.
I think there are a select few that that would be highlighted. Some of them are, our staff are mandatory reporters for certain instances regarding the health and well-being of children. Those they should, in my opinion, review, sign off on each year. There's certain ones that are critical. Does the staff need to know about how the board reorganizes every 2 years?
Yeah, that's fair. I think there ought to be something that's acknowledged within policy to make sure that people at least have.
Well, they have to
Or
be
forced to
credentialed
have an
and background
awareness.
checked and all of those kinds of things, so it's not like.
I mean,
they don't-
that
No, Andy's point is.
No, my point is people should know the policy
But that
to
should
then
be-
operate within them.
At least with-
And I'm cringing as I say this right now.
shouldn't be in
because
this
it's more
policy,
work.
though. That should be like in the employee policy section.
Okay, whatever it is, but I mean, even board members, I mean, we should pretend to police ourselves and say that board members should get a copy, should go through them, should have, should acknowledge them.
The second paragraph here that's displayed now, that Chuck pointed out to me, handles those key and critical
Yeah.
policies, but I don't know that it speaks to signing either electronically or on wet ink. Thank you.
So that idea of just saying, look, we're not going to distribute it and have numbered copies and they're going to be returned, it's just going to be the website. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
I think it's important that all policies be retained, not just for 2 years, but.
Well, no, that wasn't 2 years, so I haven't gotten to that. I was just going
Oh.
to ask, I'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
This first paragraph basically just says for distribution, it's the web. And then where I thought it would get a little stickier is later. This other stuff is a little bit new. Okay, the top paragraph there, I don't think we were complying with that. That the superintendent was reviewing everything monthly. So the thought was delete the monthly and just say there'll be triggers. There'll be new state statutes and procedures or desired changes in the educational program, and that'll trigger an action to change a policy. So is that okay?
Yeah, you also have to put in state regulations, not just statutes.
Okay. And state regulations.
Or PDE regulations.
Okay. And then where it gets a little trickier is, and this is kind of based on what I saw at NBIT, we were just updating the policy on their policy manual, and it actually had a section on having a binder where original policies were kept, and that when a policy was changed, the binder shall be opened and the new policy shall be inserted next to the old policy.
Actually, we talked about this when we were hiring
Okay,
Pua,
right,
because part of the job description actually
Yeah.
did say
right.
that, this very thing.
But we don't
Of course,
have,
we also said we weren't sure that that was actually happening in practice, but we were aware of it.
so that next paragraph says secretary of the board will do that, and there would be a secure location in the chancellor center.
Lockbox.
Right. In to what Rick's question was saying, I was saying old policies up to at most 2 prior versions. I mean, if you want to keep all prior versions, that's fine.
You have to. You don't have to, but I strongly suggest that way you can track the changes and the reasons for it, may show intent, why changes were made.
Okay.
Well, that's why you wait for the document to happen. You know, that's exactly why you might not, as an attorney.
No, but
I don't.
whenever the
well,
legislature.
If I
changes
maintain it,
something.
it's discoverable. If I discard it under an established plan for discard and destruction, it's not discoverable in
Yeah,
the same sense.
I would seriously say strongly.
Well, you're obviously the plaintiff's attorney.
No, you don't want to discard something that you may have taken disciplinary action or other action against in the past. You should keep these policies forever.
So, yeah, but no document retention thing, there's never a forever. I mean, and that's the thing, because
Oh, that's
you
not
just
true.
fill up. No, I mean, you like, pick.
Like your father plus 20.
I can tell you, the last company I worked for, I went through a hellacious experience with the FDA. It's been them to be a little picky about records. And they developed a system, and it was, they had to use Adobe's system. And their policies, in terms of pertinence, were tied to job descriptions. So that, the policies that you were required to know and sign off on were actually addendum to your job description. And every time that policy was updated, for whatever reason, the law, regulations, or just board desire, you were required to recertify that you had read it. And they had a very elaborate mechanism for that. It was global, it was worldwide. So it was in 26 different languages and that kind of stuff, which luckily I think you guys have to worry about. But the whole document management process, kind of moves you from the 20th century of, remove this page, adjust this page, which is what I used to do back in the 60s with tax code and my library job. It's not been replaced by, updated versions of PDFs or whatnot, right, that are version tracked. And at the same time, you have the capability as an employee or user to edit, not edit it, but to addend notes and experiences you've had with the book, which you can also do with.
So my thought on that,
that.
I mean, I shared the same thought, but my thought was if we could revise this now to at least have the idea of an original, that we're using the web page, and there's this other paragraph where at least we have checksums, so you can't tamper it. And then we can go to a version control system later. I thought we would come back to this policy later, because if we go to a version control now, it's gonna be months
Here's
before we
a
figure it out.
few things we need to think about. One, and we need to think about this for this, we also will need a policy, but we need to think about it for this type of thing. We also need to move to electronic signatures for the actions of the board and our attorneys. We're passing documents, signing documents is silly. And the other thing is, the way you retain them becomes a paper nightmare. So to one point, we need to consider what that means for us, because I say that, SharePoint, are we looking to continue to use SharePoint for the time being, quite some time? SharePoint would store, so while we need to make them available on the web, the official repository, we should consider making our SharePoint server, which does hold versions. And it would allow you to have the current version and the previously approved version and the one before that. So we would have both what Rick is asking for and what we would need for historical purposes, and that would be our feed to the web. So we need to think about that. And the other thing, just the electronic signatures, that would also allow us to expedite a number of things where the board president has to sign, the attorney signs. It's something we need to consider. It's a next meeting or future meeting of policy.
I mean, so the thought with this proposed revision is it really just positions us between the ancient past and the modern world. It doesn't get us to the modern world, but it gets us partway there. And so I kind of like to move forward with it, even though it's not the final step. I'd like to make some
It's
progress.
better than where we were, and it makes it at least work
It
compliant.
acknowledges what we're doing
Right.
using the web, but the piece in terms of a definitive copy, the best I could come up with without really moving to a version, validated system, which we're not ready to do. That could be a long process of quotes and whatnot, right? Is let's have a physical copy that the board secretary keeps, and then we'll have an electronic copy, but we need to have a fingerprint of them so that if they're altered, we know. I mean, you can't just put something on a computer system and think that the next time you recall it, it's what you left there. So there should at least be some mechanism to
That's the
say.
electronic signature. Even if it's only the board secretary who has it to sign electronically.
Yeah. So whatever that is, so my thought here was just to use this checksum that people use. So it's a public, I think it's part of the Windows system, I think Unix systems have it. It's a one-way hash. It's pretty hard to envision someone faking your document and getting the same checksum and having it still read logically. I mean, maybe some of these things are hackable, but it would be hard. So all you would do is
I
have.
would jump to the checksum at this point, just.
Yeah.
Because you know what, you have to come up with, there's actually a formula for the checksum, or you're saying SHA-1.
Yeah.
So it's easy to
I know, it's easy to count, but it's,
And it's just, you end up with just a table. Here's the file name, there's the checksum. It's a piece of paper. You put it in the policy manual. If anyone has concerns about something being changed,
so that's where you
Check-
sign
check-
electronically. That's the whole point of signing electronically, because you break.
it,
even the
basically that
secretary can
electronic
check.
thing basically uses these kind of checksums.
I understand
right?
it, but it's verifiable online and through a third party.
That-
Meaning you put it in, if you want to check the number, you actually check the number, and it confirms it was signed on this date.
So I'll delete this last paragraph and we'll just keep the second to last. We'll have the,
Well, other people have an opinion.
Fine by me to delete that last one.
what's that?
Fine by me to delete the last one.
Okay. I mean, this just leaves us in a place where we don't have any online electronic security, that when you see a PDF, don't trust that that's actually the policy that we passed. It may or may not be, which is where we've been
And who's-
operating all along.
I know, who's gonna
Right.
encode it? That's the problem. Who's gonna establish the checksum? So, well. but-
Secretary of the board.
That's right, which would be the person, which becomes a nuisance, because that's why electronic signatures were created, so you don't go through that. So then it rides along, it's not something to check. The other thing, by the way, on posting them on the web, I would ask, wherever possible, it should be, how do you want to describe it? I always call it print to PDF. It should not be a scanned copy.
Right, it should be print to PDF.
Right, because that's searchable. That's
Yeah.
always driven me nuts.
That's right.
So,
Bill, I don't understand the purpose of the last paragraph.
What would it
It's
be?
to sign it, the last one that we're talking about eliminating. What was the purpose of that? So that we know the version we're looking at is the official one?
That's right. So, if you get a PDF file and you wonder, is this really the official file? You just, if your Windows system has this program in it, you just point that program at that PDF file, it spits out this really long hexadecimal number. And you can see, is that hexadecimal number the same hexadecimal number that's on this piece of paper that they gave me, that's in the Chancellor's Center? So it's just a way to scrunch without having to look word by word, letter by letter, and compare to a hard copy. It fingerprints it down into
Well,
30 characters.
I think the people who work in that program will know that and nobody else will. So I would never know that. just saying, so it would be of no help to me.
It's one of these things that's easy to use. You just click on the program. you
I'd
pull it
much
to the file.
prefer that once a policy becomes old, it gets watermarked, old policy, so that as soon as I'm looking
This is what would be put
at.
in place for whoever is checking it to know that that
Oh,
actually
oh,
happened.
for the person who actually
Or-
is running the
Or
system,
anyone
I
who
see.
has the energy to
Right.
want to worry about it, that there would be a way for that, if they wanted to take the time.
Well, so I believe that the thing you're trying to accomplish is a good thing. I think there has to be a way to know it, but I don't have an opinion on
But
this
it doesn't
system. I don't know.
document, the problem is it doesn't document who, it says this is the official copy. To have the official copy, you must have someone, most regulations say, this isn't regulation, but take from regulation. To say it's the official copy, there must be a person who certifies it, who says, I'm the so-and-so,
I'm
and
good
this
with
is
the
the
signature
copy.
and a deed.
And that, what?
I'm good with the signature and a deed.
Well, that's what I am too, or electronic signature today. But it's, because that's assigned to an individual, I would know that Kapua, this is the one Kapua put up, and that's who's.
Well, I would even be
decided.
happy if we said the district will find a system to take care of this and not name the system in that paragraph.
That's fine.
There has to be somebody who does it and takes
Just
care of it.
digitally
The
sign
task
and
needs
come
to
back
be
to
achieved.
digitally
Right,
sign.
the task needs to, I'm good with the task, what we do to accomplish the task, I don't really care.
Well, to that extent, because I don't think we can't fix it tonight, but I think we all agree it's something to work on. But the original physical copies, normally you would stamp them or sign them in some way.
Or
Yeah.
seal it, right.
Does the
Yeah.
board secretary have a stamp? I mean, are they even stamped? in
She
the-
has a seal, actually. She has a seal.
Do we want her to seal these
I don't know.
originals?
I think she has a seal. School district is a seal, sure. God knows what it is.
I mean,
I'm
at
trying to
least,
think of all the things I signed, and I know she signed too, and all the things, I feel like maybe she has a seal, but I didn't remember seeing it much.
So I'm just gonna throw in a couple of things.
Great.
If she has a seal, now she has to scan that
Right,
document.
right.
no,
So-
she doesn't have to scan it. I just want the original copy in the binder.
The original copy in the binder can absolutely be stamped by her through seal.
Right. So at least if someone has a disagreement, they can go back and there's the seal.
And the second paragraph actually does work because when she produces the PDF document to post on the web, if she calculates the SHA-1 checksum at that point in time, the courts have ruled that SHA-1 checksum, an MD5/SHA-1 checksum, is admissible in court as certification that it's the original copy, because that's what forensicators, people who do forensics use to validate that the information they have is correct. So
Perfect.
to me, it would be the board secretary, when she took the Word document and produced the PDF, she calculated the SHA-1 checksum at that point in time, and also put that in the binder like the recommends. I think that's a good way to verify that the document that was posted to the web is the original copy.
Okay, that's fine with me. Like I said, as long as there's a system that you guys tell me is a good one, I'm.
I mean, we could, before we
Yeah.
ratify this, we could see, can she do it? Like, is it easy to do?
Look into both. That's why I just don't want to jump to the code yet, because I was on a sidebar. You know, Chuck's group passes documents back and forth, they all have to be signed. That's why I'm saying we need to, you may say it's a burden, but I think we need to look at how we automate and move our paper processes forward.
Okay, so we're running out of time for Rick to be compliant when he gets off the board. You're gonna be okay if you're not, will you survive?
It says you have to return all materials. That's 16 years of materials that I love to return all of it.
How about
I
if the
can dump it
board
off in
vote,
Chester and you can shred it off.
instead of fixing our policy in a hurry, would it be okay if we had a motion and say that you were, you did not follow?
Yeah, I say Rick can keep it, he just has to inventory them.
Okay, so we'll have a motion.
The
This is
other-
going away present.
Thank you. The other issue I have is, I believe that there should be a hard copy available to the public.
A hard copy.
So either at Chancellor Center, I would say at the Chancellor Center, the school libraries, for people that
Chancellor Center's fine, as far as I'm
don't
concerned.
have internet access.
Okay.
Make all
You don't
those
think-
copies and make sure
you
the
don't think
library's
the- you don't
updated
think
every
the
time we
students will wanna
change
read
one. We're gonna spend the next 2 years going over every copy, and then all those things have to be,
Rick? My preference would be, honestly, to put a terminal, a dumb terminal in the Chancellor Center. Someone can use it, come here to use it to access the web online. Because that way I don't have to keep it up to date. They can come and use a dumb terminal, go on the web and find the things.
Well, they can, the libraries do that.
I understand, so then this is new.
Okay, then the big one. So yeah. So I'll let you know what, I'll talk with Matt some, and I'll see whether there's an easy PDF solution that we can use for electronic signatures and handling those, because she'll be in Adobe looking at the PDF. If she can print a PDF, click on it, open it, sign it, that'd be great. Okay, we're off to
Which number?
conflicts of interest.
We don't have a number yet.
Okay,
Second to last, I think it was.
got it.
It's this. It might have been called, it's a very long probably.
Jones policy.
Yes, that's it. Okay. So this is all new, no red line, completely new. And,
Consensual relationships.
yeah,
Is it taken from PSBA?
That's not what this copy says.
personal relationships.
This one says personal relationships and conflicts of interest.
That's what mine does.
That's what it says right here.
No, so
Does it say that up here?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, mine says it up there too.
Consensual relationships, conflicts of interest.
now if you had sealed this and signed it.
Personal.
I was gonna say, if you had this wherever.
So what, I think what happened was, it was, Robert must have sent Marie this version. And so this is the version I had, and then Robert must have sent this other one. But
Well, I like personal relationships better than consensual. For my 2 cents.
So the title should be personal?
Yeah.
You didn't send it from correct.
I think it's a bit too.
So the paper copy is the more recent one? Not what's on the screen.
I think who knows,
Okay.
what's been mailed around, so that, no, but I'll say this, there were no changes other than I had changed the authority to be this 24 PS section 510 based on an email from Rob Cox. So the thing of the title, I have no idea, but I believe what's on this piece of paper and what's on the screen are basically the same. So the idea is Council Rock doesn't have any policy talking about conflicts of interest that arise out of close personal relationships. And so we looked at some other districts that have these policies, and whatever PSBA pointed this to us in other districts. Mrs. Brooks had some from her place of work, I had some from mine, and we kind of triangulated among those. The differences in a lot of the policies and what you have before you is that a lot of organizations just prohibit it. Thou shalt not have personal relationships in the workplace. And we can talk about that. I think that that's probably an overreach for us, even with supervisor supervised. I mean, things happen.
And I challenge those organizations that have those to actually go through their organizations and say that that's really true.
Right, you're basically inducing people to be dishonest, right?
You're basically setting up a policy where if you don't like it, you have something to enforce.
Right.
Because when nobody cares and it happens.
Right.
So I would, not only do I think it's overreaching, I don't think it's enforceable.
So, I mean, this, as written, it's written to be a positive piece of communication that says, you know, we want this to be a great workplace. And yeah, you might have relationships, but you need to tell us about it, because there's a lot of bad things that could happen if you don't. You might get pressured into a relationship. And that can happen in a number of ways. So, you know, there's no getting around, we have to read through this. So I can either read it, or we can have at least a 60-second moment of silence.
I already scanned it, I mean, it looks fine, but to really understand it word by word, we need another,
I
until the next meeting or until a first.
have a question. and I haven't read it yet, but is the intent to be anybody within the district or within the same building? Because we have several married teachers in the district.
Right, so it defines, so it says who must report the personal relationships on the next page. So a supervisory employee with a relationship with a subordinate, an employee, you know, the converse with the relationship with their supervisor, or more broadly speaking, any CRC employee who has influence over or input into the conditions of employment of the other. So that is a much more broad situation, and there's only a few folks that fit into that, and so let's see, there's this guidelines Q&A to try to help people understand what the heck we're talking about. And
So if I'm a principal of Goodnow
yeah,
and the sixth grade teacher at Ridgeboro, and so there's no influence, so we've never told anybody,
right,
and now I have a sixth grade position open at Goodnow,
right.
and that Ridgeboro teacher wants to apply to come work in that school, now I suddenly have to, but I didn't have to in the past?
I think that's right.
I think that's confusing for
Let me
employees.
ask you a question. In the state of Pennsylvania, Rick, you would know this. A same-sex couple, can you discharge someone in the state of Pennsylvania based on? You're not the board counsel.
Yeah, I know, and I don't.
My query is not knowing the status of that. Two persons could report it, and they're reporting it, being obligated to report it. Even though they reported it, under the state laws of Pennsylvania, they may still be permitted to be discharged because of their relationship.
And we're not saying that we're gonna discharge them. We're
No,
just
I'm saying
we're
they could be. So
gonna manage the conflict.
No. I'm saying there are certain relationships that in the state of Pennsylvania, as per school code, may still not be accepted under school code while they're accepted by the Supreme Court. So that you would be obligating someone to report here and under a different code, be able to dismiss them for having reported.
I don't know that there's such a provision in the school code that prevents those.
Somebody's
Well,
gotta look at that.
alternative, depends on what that structure has been, restated to be. At one time, it would be.
I just don't think it is.
It's gonna be an interesting day the day after this policy is passed.
I was gonna say, not only should Rob read it, but whoever does employment law in his firm should read it.
So Rob read this.
No, not only should Rob,
Right.
who's our school district, who I depend on to know the school code, but doesn't do employment law. But I believe somebody who does employment law should read it in every context, a relationship could be defined as having a relationship.
This is, when many years ago, we had a policy that was about nepotism. And we looked at that policy and did away with it in one night because it was unenforceable because you couldn't track the relationships. So the relationships here, I don't know how you would monitor this or impose it. It's a great idea in concept, and I agree with it in concept, and I certainly think it's fair to expect people to be responsible. But if it includes discipline, I don't know how you get there.
I don't read this as about discipline, it's about managing. It states we're gonna manage the conflict, so, if the business administrator of this district, which is a completely hypothetical example.
Married to a teacher?
Married-
Oh, we have
married to a
that.
So, that's a position where they can influence the timeliness of checks or whether things are taken out properly. There's all kinds of things that can happen there. So that position affects every employee in the district. So, knowing that there's that relationship allows the district to manage any potential conflicts.
Right, and that's all it's saying here.
So we
All it
know,
says is that it will manage potential.
so run this for me. We know today that our business manager is married.
That's right.
God forbid, never would happen. Let's say
Let's
starts
not
getting
go there on
divorced.
the microphone.
Now there's a relationship which we know,
Right,
and checks are late.
right.
and somebody makes the accusation that he made the checks late because that,
Well, so the point is, he needs to tell us
He
that
did.
the relationship exists. So now it's up to us to properly manage it. It's not his problem anymore.
I think
It's
that
us.
opens us to a whole heck of a lot more being responsible for things that
You know,
I don't wanna be,
think that's
I don't wanna be
our-
responsible because the check's late.
It's-
I said, if the checks are late and he's not doing his job, I can deal with that. But I'm not, the cause of that is
Well,
up
it's
to
not, this isn't
interpretation.
about the cause. This is
Well,
about
it's
us
about the personal
managing- well,
relationship.
It's about us managing potential conflicts.
Two things. The other thing is,
Dangerous.
it's very dangerous. So you're all aware, when you start here looking it up, you'll find that we have had instances historically where a married teacher, married to someone who's not an employee of the district,
Yeah.
begins a relationship of a romantic nature with another teacher who is not married. And so now we're in a situation where, under this policy, they would be obligated to report that.
No.
It's not true.
No?
The policy says to report it if it's in a supervisory,
Well, it could be a supervisor thing.
Assistant principal at the high school and a
Not-
teacher at the high school.
Could be.
Well, then we need to know. It's our job.
And then what are we gonna do?
We may transfer people. We may change
you could change, you
the
could change
approval
it
process.
procedures for certain grievances or certain issues that could come up because it would be unfair because we know about that relationship.
I
We have
understand.
the liability already.
No, I understand.
I agree,
with it.
they're
just-
all over the district. My concern is putting ourselves in a position where we are more liable for other people's interpretations of that. So again, I'll say, I can dream up and it's unfair. I don't intuitively have a problem with saying to people, you should tell us, and if there's conflict, we'll adjust things so there's not conflict. Better for you, better for us, everybody wins. I get that, that's what we're trying to get to.
That's right.
I want somebody who does employment law to read this and tell me I'm not going to be more liable than I was when I didn't know.
That's good.
I don't want to become more liable because I had knowledge and now people say, well, you knew this was going on and you didn't prevent something we never saw was going to happen. And so now I've become liable because of somebody's personal relationship, etc.
Right.
So I'm good with the intent. I just want to make sure we get there the best way.
That's fair. So everyone's going to read it. We're going to ask an employment attorney to review it as well.
Right.
I mean, it'll require Mr. Cox and this attorney to conference someone because the school code actually
I think he's Brennan
speaks-
Gray has.
Right. It does
So
give,
it's-
it gives us special powers with respect to employment that other employees don't have. So anything else on it?
After they look it over, there's some wording changes I'll suggest, but wait.
I mean, you can get them in now. Do you want to email them or?
They may make changes to it, so
Okay.
I'm not gonna wait until then, so I don't have to duplicate the work.
Okay, thanks.
So it's an interesting question. When you review it, that disclosure, is that a personnel item or is it now a record of the district which is subject to right to know acts?
So if somebody comes in and wants to know if their spouse who works for the district is having
Yeah.
a relationship with somebody in their school.
Have they reported it to the school?
Interesting.
I was at Irving Trust, we accidentally sent a man's,
Expand this policy,
Right,
to not just
fiance,
employees, but independent contractors. Talks
Not
about
just
employees,
employees,
but
Harold.
employees or independent contractors.
So Mr. Amerson's suggesting that we expand this to cover independent contractors as well.
If there's a conflict of interest, what difference does it make if it's an independent contractor?
But an independent contractor is an at-will employee, right?
They're
I
independent,
mean, but they're, what can you be specific, like?
like
what-
Airmark, for instance, or
Well, if we have a
First
doctor, or
student.
a school psychologist, or somebody else who's an independent contractor that's married to somebody that has supervisory control over them, that is building principal.
So as we'll do is, I'm not sure if it's just same last name or if they're actually married. Baseball coach and like the tramps. Right?
Let's not run real well over here.
But whatever it is, so if you got EDRPP versus some,
It's the same
Yeah, that's what I-
concerns, you're gonna have the same concerns.
I mean,
whether
do we
they're-
have a policy about any of the contractors we hire relative to?
That they'll obey the school board policies, it's in their contract.
so all that would require is disclosure. Wouldn't an appointed attorney point that out to us?
Not sure.
When looking at this, here's who in the district should.
Not necessarily, I mean, how would they know? So.
Well, no, I know, if you're asking the question, review this policy and let us know
They
who
don't
it.
know how it's
Here's the policy, here's the intent. Is there anybody that we're missing?
Okay, well, that's,
And you would ask a question that would say employees that were,
It's in many of our other policies that we've also expanded it from.
actually, the employee would probably be defined somewhere in the policy manual too, right? Or what is it, employee?
Curriculum coordinator, supervisory personnel. No. So we have many layers of, we have a matrix, so it's very,
Well, it goes beyond just supervisory, the way this thing's defined.
anyone that has influence over the conditions of employment.
Right.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, someone who, you could have someone at facilities, I'm not fixing your air conditioner, whatever. Right, your room's hot, that's part of your job. Right. That could be,
I just don't like
Technically,
you, I'm
those
not
regs-
fixing your air conditioner, so that's the same, that's more likely to happen than.
right. So do we want to take a break before the main meeting or work to the last possible minute?
Why don't we take a break?
Good? Just call this meeting
Wait,
to
wait, well,
a close.
So what's happening with policy 622?
So which one is that? Could
The
you-
capital asset policy that we received, that gave some changes to Reinhardt that so that he made.
So the policy committee deferred to the finance committee on that piece of work. So I will refer it to the. that
Right.
finance-
Kick the can over this way.
I want to get this off my desk already, so we can just, let me know.
I'm not, did you give the wording to Reinhardt?
Yeah, you made the changes, a lot of changes, then I have some other
I'm,
questions.
the minutia of some of the phrasing, I'm not really worried about, I was
It's
more
more
worried about the
than
intent,
minutia.
so you said.
So I know.
Before we end the meeting, I'd like to ask our public if they have any comment.
I think this bears a lot more sense. You need to come up with a method to deal with the matrix organization that you've got in spades. And there's no way that this is going to be straightforward. Unfortunately.
Welcome to policy.
Been there, done
So that's
Wrote the policy.
our meeting, so.
So wait,
yeah,
I'm sorry, so the next step on that is that it'll go back to you for hearing.
That's right.
it. You might do well to reach out, see if there are other examples of organizations, similar complexities, and how they've dealt with it.
Not just that, Steve, but other school districts.
You know, we did, we got policies from at least 2 other school districts, and we looked at the policies of 2 big companies, but that's all we did. So, okay, so we're adjourned. Thank you for coming. Good meeting, good stuff.